Maine's woods whispered promises of peace. A secluded cabin beckoned. Emily and Jake, a young couple craving respite, answered the call. They yearned to escape the city's clamour. Little did they know silence could scream. Their car crunched on the snow-dusted path. Excitement thrummed through them. This was their haven, a world away from the everyday. But as the sun dipped below the tree line, shadows crept in, along with an unease they couldn't shake off. The cabin was charming, rustic, a storybook retreat. A crackling fireplace chased away the evening chill. The scent of pine filled the air. Emily and Jake unpacked, their laughter echoing in the spacious room. They cooked dinner together, the day's stress melting away. After dinner, they played board games, their laughter filling the silence. But as the fire dwindled, so did their sense of comfort. The silence was no longer peaceful. It was expectant, heavy. Later that night, a sound pierced the quiet, a tap, tap, tap on a window pane. Emily and Jake exchanged nervous glances. They blamed the wind. It was logical, wasn't it? The wind howled outside, a mournful sound, but the tapping persisted, rhythmic, insistent. Emily's heart pounded. Jake, trying to appear brave, checked the windows. They were secure. Nothing there. They tried to ignore the sound, to lose themselves in a movie. But the tapping continued, a relentless beat against the silence of the cabin. Morning brought a fragile sense of normalcy. Sunlight streamed through the windows. The woods seemed less menacing. "Let's explore," Emily suggested, needing to shake off the previous night's unease. They bundled up and stepped outside. That's when they saw them, footprints in the fresh snow. They circled the cabin, ending abruptly at the back door, as if whatever made them had simply vanished. Back inside, a sense of dread clung to them. They tried to rationalize the footprints. An animal, a neighbor, but deep down, a seed of doubt had been sown. As dusk settled, Jake was stoking the fire. He glanced up at the sound of a creak from the hallway. For a fleeting moment he saw it. A shadow, tall and gaunt, disappearing into the darkness. He couldn't be sure, but he could have sworn he wasn't alone in the cabin. Emily stumbled upon an old journal tucked away in a drawer. She had been cleaning out the attic, a task she had been putting off for years. The room was filled with dust and memories, and the journal seemed to call out to her, begging to be opened. Its leather cover was cracked, the pages yellowed with time. It looked like it hadn't been touched in decades. The journal had an aura of mystery, as if it held secrets long forgotten. Curiosity outweighed their growing fear. Emily's hands trembled slightly as she opened the journal, her heart pounding in her chest. What could be inside? She wondered if it was a diary, a collection of stories, or something else entirely. They huddled together, their breaths misting in the cold air, as they opened the journal. The entries were chilling. Each page revealed more about the life of a young woman who had lived in the same house decades ago. A young woman, decades ago, wrote of similar experiences, the tapping, the footprints, the shadow. Her handwriting was neat at first, but as the entries continued it became more frantic and desperate. She wrote of feeling watched, tormented by something unseen. The sense of dread grew with each entry, and Emily could almost feel the young woman's fear seeping through the pages. The final entry, scrawled and desperate, spoke of an entity in the cabin, something dark and malevolent. Emily's breath caught in her throat as she read the last words, feeling a chill run down her spine. The journal had revealed a haunting tale, one that seemed to echo through time. That night sleep was impossible. Every creak of the floorboards, every sigh of the wind sent shivers down their spines. Then it began, the tapping, louder this time, more insistent. It seemed to come from every window surrounding them. Then footsteps, heavy footsteps, upstairs, but the cabin only had one floor. Terror, raw and consuming, gripped them. Emily and Jake huddled together, their faces pale, their eyes wide with terror. They were prisoners in their once peaceful haven. Dawn broke, painting the sky with hues of hope. The first light of day seemed to promise a new beginning, a chance to escape the horrors of the night. The forest, once a place of serene beauty, had turned into a landscape of terror for Emily and Jake. They had spent the night in a state of constant fear, every creak and whisper of the wind amplifying their anxiety. Exhausted and terrified, Emily and Jake didn't waste a moment. Their faces were etched with worry, their eyes darting around the room as if expecting something to leap out at them. The events of the previous night had left them shaken to their core, and they knew they had to leave immediately. They packed their belongings with frantic haste, their hands shaking. Every item they stuffed into their bags felt like a lifeline, a step closer to safety. The dim light of the room did little to calm their nerves, and the urgency of their movements only grew with each passing second. They could almost feel the walls closing in on them, the air growing thicker with dread. The car screeched out of the driveway, leaving the cabin behind like a nightmare they were desperate to outrun. The snow-covered road stretched out before them, a path to freedom. The tires kicked up snow as they sped away, the cabin growing smaller in the rearview mirror. It was a place they never wanted to see again, a chapter they were eager to close. When they contacted the rental company, their voices trembled as they recounted their experience. Every word was laced with fear, every sentence a desperate plea for understanding. They needed to know what had happened, why the cabin had felt so wrong. Their hands shook as they held the phone, the memory of the night still fresh in their minds. The woman on the other end listened patiently, then replied, "We don't rent out that cabin anymore." Her voice was calm, but there was an edge to it, a hint of something unspoken. Emily and Jake exchanged a glance, their hearts pounding in their chests. What did she mean? Why had the cabin been available if it wasn't supposed to be rented out? Not after... The line went dead. The abrupt end to the call left them in stunned silence. They stared at the phone, the woman's unfinished sentence echoing in their minds. Not after what? The question hung in the air, unanswered and unsettling. They knew they had escaped something terrible, but the full extent of it remained a mystery. Back in the city, the familiar sounds were a comfort. The hustle and bustle of everyday life, the honking of cars and the chatter of people provided a sense of normalcy that they desperately needed. Yet, beneath this facade of normalcy, a storm brewed within them. But the experience clung to them, a chilling memory they couldn't shake off. The tapping, the footprints, the eerie silence that followed them everywhere they went. It was as if the shadows of the past had followed them back to the city, refusing to let go. The shadow in the hallway. It was more than just a trick of the light. It was a constant reminder of the unknown, lurking just beyond the edge of their perception. Every creak, every rustle sent shivers down their spines. Were they figments of their imagination, or had they stumbled upon something truly sinister? The questions gnawed at them day and night. Sleep became a distant memory, replaced by restless nights filled with nightmares and unanswered questions. The old abandoned house in the woods was a place they would never forget. The mysterious figure standing in the shadows, watching them, was etched into their minds. They couldn't shake the feeling that they had uncovered something that was never meant to be found. The silence of their city apartment was no longer peaceful, but a constant reminder of the secluded cabin in the Maine woods. The once comforting quiet now felt oppressive, filled with the weight of their memories. The silence that once promised peace now whispered unanswered questions, forever haunting their dreams. The cabin remained a silent testament to their terror, a place where the line between reality and nightmare blurred. The nights were the worst. Lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, they could almost hear the whispers of the past. The moonlight casting shadows on the walls only added to their unease. Every shadow seemed to move, every sound seemed amplified. The isolated cabin in the dense woods stood as a chilling reminder of their ordeal. The dark, foreboding atmosphere, the mist that shrouded it at dusk, all served as a stark contrast to the life they once knew, a chilling reminder that some secrets are best left undisturbed. The forest path leading to the cabin, the rusty lock on the door, slightly ajar, all seemed to beckon them back. But they knew better. Some doors once opened can never be closed.